And this is David Owen's director, the farm. I saw Sheila off this morning, my Sheila, to Scotland. I think someone...
Here, on this occasion of the end of Cuckfield's Millennium Week, in the middle of our dinosaur day, and to introduce to you Andy Ottaway, who, with Mike Howgate of Prehistoric Promotions, has been the inspirer of this project, which has reached fruition this morning. He's going to tell you something about Gideon Mantell and about the organization of this memorial. Mr. Andy Ottaway.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you all for coming. We are here today to commemorate an historic event in terms of both Sussex, Cuckfield and geological science. On this very spot, 178 years ago, in the early 19th century, Lewis surgeon Gideon Mantell and his wife Mary Ann made a truly historic and famous discovery. It's a discovery that's made Cuckfield famous the world over, and we should all bear that in mind, and that's why we're here today. They discovered on this very spot the fossilised bones of a 125 million year old dinosaur called Iguanodon, which was only the second dinosaur known to science at that time. Gideon Mantell was truly a pioneer of dinosaur science at a time when virtually nothing was known about these amazing and gigantic reptiles, the real-life dragons of legend. Gideon was to be the first man to piece together how these great creatures looked and lived all those many millions of years ago, when we actually still had summers. Gideon went on to name another 7 dinosaurs. He also opened the world's first dinosaur museum to the public in Brighton in the 1830s. In my view, he was never to fully receive the credit and recognition he deserved for his wonderful work and his contribution to geological science. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's what we're going to put right here today. We're also making a bit of our own history, because as far as I am aware, this is the first and only dinosaur monument in the country.
Wow.
I won't say it's been the fastest process to put it together either. And I don't recommend dinosaur monument building to anyone as a career move. But over the last 18 months, a couple of hundred phone calls and about 1,000 miles travelled between my home and Cuckfield, I'm delighted to say we've got here in the end. And in getting here, I'd especially like to thank Mr. Lionel Hanna here, who is the owner of Philpott's Quarry, who very kindly and generously donated the sandstone block on which the plaque has been... I'd also like to extend a special thank you to a superb artist, Mr. John Sibick, who donated the wonderful Iguanodon painting that you'll be seeing very shortly. Thank you, John. They're going to say a few words in a moment, but I'd also like to thank Mid Sussex District Council for their generous grant to make this possible. I'd also like to thank the Geologists Association, whose Curry Fund also stumped up some cash to make this possible. I'd like to thank local builder Stephen Helm for getting the job done against all the odds. And in that connection... I'd also like to thank Mr. John Mullen, wherever he is, who moved heaven and earth to make this happen in very short time. He's not here, but I'd also like to thank Mr. Peter Fox of Ada Metalworks, who actually... Is he? Hi, for producing what was described as the impossible plaque. I don't think he's here either, but Mr. Gary Marsh, who's a superb design artist who helped make the sign the great thing that it is, and Mr. Richard Thompson of Stewart Signs for delivering the thing on time. I'd also like to thank Paddock-Hurst Estates, who very kindly and generously have helped donate some of the stonework and a lot of the trimmings that we see here today. And some special thanks are in order. I'd like to thank the Natural History Museum in London for their help and advice, and Dr. Angela Milner, who's unfortunately delayed but will be here this afternoon to give you a talk on the dinosaurs that were found here. It goes without saying that I'd like to thank all the people of Cuckfield for their support, and all those people that have travelled here today that have donated to this project. Thank you very much indeed. Please give yourself a clap. Now, I would like to say at this point that there's a very special thank you in order here today, and that is to Brian and Doris Cox. It was after first meeting Brian nearly 2 years ago that I resolved to see this project through. If it wasn't for his passion and his commitment and enthusiasm, and the occasional dig in the ribs from Doris's umbrella, I really don't think I would have. Finally, not least, I'd like to say a special thank you to Gideon and Mary Ann Mantell for making all of this possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andy Ottaway. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as you've heard, the Mid-Sussex District Council was a substantial and, I may say, an initial contributor to the costs of this. I'm very pleased that one of the Cuckfield councillors, Peter Jones, is here on behalf of the council just to say a very few words.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Good morning, everybody. Well, on behalf of the council, I'd like to say how pleased we were to give you a grant made up of your money towards your monument. This has been going on for some time, and I had heard that it was going to be a fiberglass effigy of a dinosaur which was going to be released by a little chef. But I'm told it's going to be much better than that. In fact, I'm sure it will be in keeping with the style of Cuckfield. And I would like to add some thanks too, particularly to Andy Ottaway for all the energy and effort he's put into making this thing happen, and to the many people who have already donated money, Mid-Sussex District Council, Independent State, the Museum, Cuckfield Society, and others who I can't all remember. So thank you very much for coming here. Over to you, Andy. Thank you.
Peter has just listed many of the local organisations who have donated money, and I'm very pleased that the Mayor, who is combining that role this year with the chairmanship of the Cuckfield Society, has been a leader in persuading those two organisations to stump up handsomely towards this project. However, while there are many of you present whom I have personally readed the wallets of. We're not quite there yet. Here's the paying in book. Any further contributions may be put in the letterbox either at my house or at the Queen's Hall or at the museum. And this afternoon's talk by Dr. Angela Milner begins at 2:30 in the Queen's Hall. I hope to see as many faces there as I can see here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me enormous pleasure to invite Brain Cox to say just a few words and then to unveil the memorial. Brian.
Fortunately, Stephen and Andy between them seem to have done the thank yous, because it's always very embarrassing to think who you've missed out. So just in case, we say thank you to everyone who is involved in this memorial development. It goes back a very long time. Mantell was here nearly 180 years ago. Even in the 18th century, our Reverend Maberley gave a lecture on it, and at the end of his lecture told the people of Cuckfield that they can sleep peacefully at night. The dinosaurs are unlikely to awaken after 100 million years. Various people then enter the picture. Sidney Spokes, who was a dental surgeon who lived in Castle Place, Lewis, in Mantell's house, wrote one of the first books about him, and another man, Cohen, wrote another one giving the details, but there was sparse information really about Gideon Mantell and his doings until dinosaurs became a big topic with films being made of them. My personal interest in this came first about 1975 possibly, when I was told by Miss Maisie Wright, who was our local historian, that she had attended a dinner at Ockenden Manor where medical friends of the name of Gideon had got together to set up a monument to him. And they were the people who thought of putting up a plastic full-size dinosaur here, fiberglass, with kids sliding down the back, and they would have loved it. But sadly, they made a collection. Even at that time, the international aspect came out. They had a visiting geologist from Canada who presented them with a donation. But unfortunately, that particular incident ended in tragedy, and then nothing happened for many years. In 1985, when I retired, I first got re-interested in the dinosaur, and I received a lot of help from John Cooper, the curator of Booth Museum down in Brighton, and started researching and giving talks about it. I talked to the Cuckfield Society in 1987, and I always ended my talks by asking that Cuckfield should produce some sort of memorial to Gideon's work. Anyway, jumping on a few years, Andy and Mike set up this idea, and a very good one, of having a dinosaur trail between the Natural History Museum and Brighton, passing right through Sussex. Gideon himself wrote, and if you're in the museum you can see it in his own handwriting, writing to a Professor Silliman at Yale University in the States. He wrote that Sussex was always thought to be an area of very little geological interest, but he had now found that it produced the most interesting geology of Britain. And it is a fact that in our clays and our Wealden stones there are some extraordinary artifacts, some still to be dug up. You've got to go down 25 feet here and have a good supply of black powder if you want to blast them out. But that was the situation when 1998, one summer's day, Andy and Mike were told by John Cooper that if they came and saw me, I might know something about dinosaurs in Cuckfield. And then we set off on this trail, and I must say Andy has done a remarkably good job. I've prodded him all the time, and as he mentioned, Doris has helped. But he has in fact succeeded in doing the real work that was necessary to bring this thing to fruition. There was one great moment that has been mentioned when we went to a quarry. I always felt that this needed a stone similar to the stone that Mantell was chopping his fossils out of from the Wealden sandstone. And there was a quarry at West Hoathly that has similar stone, and we went there and saw our good friend Lionel, and we're about to say to him, how much do you want for it? When Lionel said, if you take all responsibility for moving it, you can have it. And that in fact was a great moment, because it set us off. We really had something. We next came and worried the Museum Trust. Andy then set up the design of everything, which was excellent, and we took it into the Museum Trust, who were a little concerned that we had got so far. We were virtually ready to go, but we felt it's no good going to the Museum Trust with half a story. We went in with a project that could be followed. Anyway, that went on and we got there. Now the other interesting thing about this is that you will see our memorial contains some very important people who sometimes get forgotten. But it has the quarrymen who actually found. I tell people not to use the word found related to these fossils. Gideon Mantell interpreted them. The quarrymen dug them out. And there was a quarryman that he mentions in his journal, Daniel Leaney, who was probably the foreman, who sent him a whole bunch of rocks containing fossils down to Lewis. The quarrymen should be remembered who toiled away in that field over there and along here, excavating the hard stone that is in the bottom here. And if you're interested, a curious story about our hard Cuckfield stones is when they were building the Brighton Pavilion, they wanted some stone to put up on those circular pilasters at the top, and this Cuckfield stone was dense enough. What is sad is that in the great storm of 1987, it was a lump of Cuckfield stones that went through the pavilion roof. So, just one other thing to tell you about, that I felt you can't have a memorial to somebody without making sure that he hasn't got a family. And so I knew from my research in 1990, when we celebrated Gideon's bicentenary, that his son Walter had gone to New Zealand. And I had communicated with them then, which we have done again, with the help of one of our local email boffins, Andrew Revel. We got in touch with the Natural Museum of New Zealand, and they found that Gideon Mantell still has a great-great-grandson living in Wellington, in New Zealand, who has said he would like to come here later in the year to see what we have done. And I think he'll find we have done him proud. And the National Museum in New Zealand has been extremely helpful, and we have some of their artifacts in the museum for you to look at, to uncover this and see what we're standing in front of. Thank you very much. Andy, you're going to stand back.
Before you cut that tape, am I wrong in assuming that there's not only in memory of the people involved in this project, but it almost acts like a tombstone to the poor creature that was found? In which case, Cuckfield must have the oldest burial stone in the world, which could go in the Guinness Book of Records.
125 million years.
Yes, I think you said 100 million years. Somebody said 290 million years.
125, it's official.
Right.
Well, with great pleasure, I now unveil this memorial, particularly to Gideon Mantell, but to everyone else who helped him in his work.
To mark our gratitude, Mr. Ottaway will now present a bouquet to Doris. He might be wisest. He can.
Can I just say that behind every great man there's a better woman. Brian, a little present for you. I'd just like to say, on behalf of everyone, Brian Cox, this is Gideon Mantell's life. Thank you.
Oh, no. I just tell you, everybody, it is available on our library circuit. When I told somebody, and they got onto the machine, they find that the 2 copies in Hayward's Heath, and I think somewhere else near here, probably Crawley, have disappeared. So it must be a very popular book. It is
The same book, Brian.
I recommend it. It is really gives you every detail of Mantell's story. But it is available again.
Thank you all very, very much indeed for coming. We hope you've enjoyed it. This is a lasting memorial to Cuckfield's Millennium Week. And thank you all very much for supporting it. If you want to hear more about the dinosaurs, this afternoon, 2:30, Queen's Hall. And don't miss the exhibition in the museum or your personal opportunity to contribute to the cost. Thank you. Thank you.
Lovely piece of stuff.
Three ton plus that way, so I reckon.
Peter!
You're tall enough. You're tall enough.
Thank you. All right?
Yeah.
Good. Can you look at me? Smile. Do a couple. All right?
Cheers. Good. Stone on there.
And one more for luck. Hello, Stephen.
Your cider.
Yes. Okay. Can you look at me?
You come down the way from the point.
Is it all right? Thank you.
Thank you. Get this far away.
You seen Mike lately? Mike Miller?